basically like a theater skills kind of class where you learn the practical side of like hanging up lights and building sets and designing sets and things like that. Just like practical hands-on things.
Hi, and welcome to Major Questions. This is a podcast where our students here at Hannibal-LaGrange University will give you a sneak peek into their college lives, diving into their majors, and what makes it so special being on HLGU's campus in America's hometown. Kaylin Nessler, exploring her well-rounded passions, enjoys her studies of both theater and English, traveling far from home to our university that she didn't expect to catch her eye. Kaylin is now a junior at HLGU. Here she can embark on her colorful journey where the university's programs allow her to experience many things. We will get some of Kaylin's insight on her path to becoming a double major and what it takes to be a successful and dedicated student despite busy schedules of daily life. Hosting our guest today, here is Franny Knoll.
Welcome to Major Questions. My name is Freddie Knoll, and I'm a senior at Hannibal-LaGrange University, and I'll be your host today. Today, I'm interviewing Kaylin Nessler, a junior at Hannibal-LaGrange University. How are you today, Kaylin?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to come talk to us about your major. I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask you today. Are you ready to get into them?
Yeah.
My first question for you is, when you were in high school, did you know you wanted to go to college?
I actually didn't know. I knew that I wanted to go to college, but I wasn't in the most financially well-off family. So I never imagined I'd be able to afford to go to college. But then I just kept my grades up in college, in high school. And I got quite a few scholarships and things. So that's how I was able to come to college, which was really surprising to me because I grew up thinking there ain't no way that's happening. So,
Yep. Being from Denver, when you were looking at colleges, how did you find HLGU?
It's actually kind of a funny story. My parents and we moved to Missouri my senior year of high school during COVID, which was kind of terrible, not going to lie, but that's a story for another day. So we were living here about an hour outside of Hannibal, and I was actually going to go to Lindenwood University because they really wanted me in their theater department. And then my dad, he came up to me and he was like, hey, you should go to this cool little college in this place called Hannibal, and they have this thing called a Trojan Day, and you should go. And I said, Dad, I don't want to go to some little tiny Baptist college in the middle of Missouri. That sounds so lame. And he was like, just go. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll humor you. I'll go. And so I go to this Trojan Day and I'm here and I'm like, wow, this is a problem because I kind of like this place and I kind of want to stay. And so that's just kind of how I found it. And then, yeah, I had that good first experience with it. So
during your Trojan Day, what was the one thing that was like, this is it, this is the done deal?
Mm-hmm. So there was actually a couple of things. One was just the community aspect of it, which was something I hadn't seen at any of the other colleges, just because it is such a small college and how everybody knows everybody else most of the time. And so I like that personally. I thought I had never seen that, didn't really know it was possible in a college setting. And so that was cool to see. And then also that day I had an audition with our theater director, Sabrina Brookshire, for like a scholarship audition and stuff like that. So we did that and it was so weird because I was so panicked about this audition all day long, and I really didn't know why, because yes, auditions are nerve-wracking, but I was really nervous about this one for some reason, and I don't know why. But the moment I walked into that room, I felt this sense of just calm, and I was like, okay. And I was like, wow, this is going to work. This is where I'm supposed to be. And so, yeah, that's really what sold me home.
That's really interesting. I get nervous sometimes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your majors?
Yeah, so I'm a double major in theater and English. I came here as solely a theater major, and because that's what I always wanted to do. It's my passion, it's my love, it's all those things. And so I came here for that, and we do shows and stuff every semester. And I like our theater degree here because it's a very rounded theater degree, as opposed to a lot of colleges where you have like a focused area where it's like musical theater or tech or lighting or anything like that. Here you get a broad sense, which helps me, who's someone who wants to go on and get my master's in a specific thing. I get to experience everything and then decide where I want to go, having a little bit of experience in everything and having kind of figured out where my niche is. And then my sophomore year, I decided I wanted to become an English major just because I really liked my lit classes. And I sat down with my advisor and I was like, hey, could I feasibly do 2 majors in 4 years? And she was like, yeah, totally. I was like, okay, great. So I'm really just an English major for fun. I don't really plan to do anything with it. I just really love studying literature and the English language and stuff like that. And so that's really why I do that.
That's so interesting. I cannot imagine being like, let me take English for fun.
I love just like studying and analyzing literature, and I get to do all that. Oh, so good.
Going off of that,
Mm-hmm.
what is your favorite part about each of your majors?
I think as an English major, I really enjoy diving in to books and stuff like that and looking at it in a way that I wouldn't before being an English major, like just because you don't have that knowledge just as a typical everyday reader. And so I love to read. I read all the time. And so it's nice to be able to have that thought process of being able to analyze and see what styles and literary elements are used. And then even having the resources and the knowledge to know how to look at the context of when the book was written and kind of the influence it would have had on the people at the time. And I find that absolutely fascinating. Right now I'm also in a linguistics kind of class, and so that's been super fun because I get to learn a lot about how the brain and language interact, which is not something I'd really studied before. So that was really cool. And then for theater, one of my favorite things is just I love, like I said, being able to do all the different facets of theater. Like when I came in, I was very much, I want to do musical theater, and that's it. I still wanted that rounded degree, but I knew that, I want to do musical theater and there's nothing else. And then here I am. I found out that I really enjoy like lighting and costume design, and it's one of just my favorite things to do. And while I still love being on the stage and singing and acting and dancing and doing all those kinds of things, and I still get to do that, it's just one of my favorite things to be able to experience every kind of cog in the machine of creating a production and the theatrical creative process.
I know you said that you're only taking the English major for fun.
Mm-hmm.
So with theater, what are you looking to do with your major?
Coming in, I wasn't entirely sure. I just knew, as someone who's a Christian and a believer, I'd prayed about it so much, and I had all of this time. And so I knew that God wanted me to do something in the theater, like everything just lined up, and it was just all the pieces fell into place, and I felt like it was right. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. It was more of a, okay, I'm trusting you, going into a field that really isn't lucratively promising. And so I went, and then last year, the spring of 2023, the theater department had a trip down to Sight and Sound Theater in Branson, and which I had never been there. I'd barely heard of it until I moved to Missouri. I was like, what the heck is this place that everybody keeps talking about? And so we went there and we saw the show Esther, but we got this backstage tour and stuff. And just while I was there, I was so happy. I was elated. I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. This is, I think, where I'm supposed to be. And so after a lot of prayer and thought and talking with my fiance and with my parents as well, because even though I'm out of the house, I still pretty much ask for their validation on all my decisions. I think that I feel that that's where I'm meant to go, and I think that's kind of the end goal for me, is to work at Sight and Sound Theater.
That's so interesting. So I'm assuming that you're a very busy person, being
Yes.
a double major. So what does the average day look like for you?
It is pretty packed, I will be honest. Luckily for me, as someone who's definitely a night person and not a morning person, most theater classes happen like in the afternoon, late morning, into the evening a lot of the time, because a lot of, like, in the theater world, you tend to operate later instead of like earlier. Whereas like I know a lot of like education classes, they happen in the morning because a lot of that's when they start their day typically. And so I really like that. Anyway, that's a tangent. But so typically I'll get up. I have like an English class in the morning usually. I don't usually get lunch, unfortunately, because I'm in the HLGU concert choir and we meet from noon to 1, and I typically have classes before and after. So then I'll have like a 1 p.m. class sometimes. And then I'll have a little break, depending on obviously class schedules change. But then a lot of semesters, you'll have a class called Theater Activity, which is from like 2 to 5 in the afternoon. It's basically like a theater skills kind of class where you learn the practical side of like hanging up lights and building sets and designing sets and things like that. Just like practical hands-on things where like I walked in as a theater major, not knowing a whole lot about power tools. And so that's something you need to know for the construction of a set. And so that kind of thing. And typically we'll go to dinner, and then we'll have a rehearsal from 6 to 9, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, for whatever play or show we're doing at that point. So that usually takes up a lot of your time. And then in between those breaks, you do homework, but then after rehearsal, if you don't have all of it done, sorry, you gotta do more. So while it's a very busy schedule and it definitely gets a little exhausting sometimes, it's perfectly okay with me. Like, I'm doing what I love, so it's good.
It's great that you love that, because you are very busy. So with being very busy, and doing all of this, where do you get the motivation to keep going and doing that every day?
It is hard sometimes. Like some days you wake up and you're like, I cannot do this today. Like there's no way. But I think there's a lot of having the faith that I do and having faith that I'm in the right place and where God wants me to be right now, that you just have to persevere through it sometimes, and just going through it and knowing that it is in the end all for the glory of God, and it's where he wants me to be right now. So he believes that I can do it, and so I believe that I can do it because he knows way more than I do. So, I mean, there's a lot of things earthly as well. I mean, like, I have friends and things who really help me through it, and just amazing professors, and I love the subjects that I'm learning. And so even some days when I don't want to get up and go to class, I'll be like, I'll go and I'll be like, I really just don't want to be here. But I'll sit down and they'll start teaching and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just, it's the thing that I love. And so it is easy to forget that sometimes, but it's also easy to get reminded of it.
That's amazing. You're a junior. You're going to be graduating soon.
Yeah.
Do you have any post-graduation plans? And if so, what are they?
Not necessarily at the moment. Right now, it's a little bit in flux because I'm getting married in May, and my fiance, he's a year behind me. We'll be here for another year after I graduate. So I think right now in Quincy, Illinois, there's the community theater there, Quincy Community Theater. They're pretty good theater for being a community theater. Like they have their own building, which is can't be said for a lot of community theater programs. And so they do a lot of productions there. And so I think maybe I could get a job there for at least that year that he's still in school. And so I kind of get things on my resume and get things established. But then also at some point, I do want to go and get my master's. I'm still not sure on what yet. Like I said, I've really, really been enjoying doing like lighting design and things like that. But I also acting's been my first love. So right now is the process of me making that decision of what do I want to focus on. And so, yeah, it's still kind of all in flux, but I'm not too worried about the future. Like I know there's going to be things. So
yeah, I have one final question for you. What would you say to somebody who's considering majoring in either theater or in English?
For someone majoring in English, I would say it's really easy to not read the books and just look at Spark Notes, but don't. You get so much more out of it if you just sit down and read the book. And yeah, sometimes, you know what? It's 1 a.m. and you haven't started the book. And I'm sorry, because we've been there. But if you can, just sit down and read it and study it the way they want you to, because you get so much more out of it and it's so enjoyable doing that. For theater, I would say you have to remember that while theater does involve some semblance of talent, theater's more of a skill than anything else. It's not something that you're just born with, that you just know how to do. It's something that you need to practice and work at, and you improve. It's something that you learn, not something that you already have. And so when you feel like you're falling behind, you're not. It's just that thing of there's more work to be done, and that's really all it is.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you again, Kaylin, for coming and talking to us about your majors today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
This has been Major Questions. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Kaylin Nestler is a motivated student who has been driven by her faith and loves what she does. After graduation, she is hoping to participate in local productions, building up her resume, and will possibly seek her master's degree in the future. Thank you for listening to Major Questions.